Welcome. The day of February 19th is here, and our City Council meeting is called to order. If I'd have you stand and face the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the roll reflect that council is all here with absence of Lisa Leifeld. So tonight, council, I would like to read a proclamation for the Minnesota Food Share and Hastings Family Service. Start with Councilmember Ross.
Whereas Minnesota Food Share has coordinated a March campaign for 37 years to restock food shelves around the state of Minnesota, and
whereas 1 in 10 Minnesotans are food insecure and do not have access to adequate food on a regular basis, and
whereas Hastings Family Service serves an average of 100 families each month in the food shelf and has served the basic needs of our community since 1970, and
whereas 51% of our community members who visit Hastings Family Service food shelf indicate that someone in their household has skipped a meal because there was not enough food, and
whereas the generosity of our community makes it possible for the Hastings Family Service to provide help and hope to our neighbors who lack food, housing, clothing, or transportation, and whereas all gifts of money and food throughout the month of March are proportionally matched by Minnesota Food Share, and
Now therefore be it resolved, I, Mary Fassbender, Mayor of the City of Hastings, do hereby declare a citywide food fight during the month of March to restock the food shelf at Hastings Family Service and fight hunger in our community. Chris Cope with Hastings Family Service is here.
Thank you very much. Yes, as you all said, and it is a very important time of year for us and for food shelves across our state of Minnesota. There are 300 of us that are fighting hunger in our own individual communities, and starting February 25th through April 7th, we are challenging our community to come and walk alongside us so we can continue to walk alongside our neighbors. We'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. And this community is what makes our work possible. And we are very unique and very blessed to be able to do this work here in our community. And yesterday we had a new resident of Hastings, family, walk in our doors. And I overheard them telling our receptionist they're new to the area and they don't really know much about what's available, but someone told them to come down to Hastings Family Service. They came today on the Loop, which is a transportation program we have on Tuesdays that the City of Hastings does help fund. And they came down and they got food and they got back on the Loop, all 4 of them. They got a free ride for the first time, so that was fun for them. And so that family, I'm not sure what other services they got, but it's a blessing to be able to be there when someone is new to our community or someone has been here for many years. And as you heard, 51% of the folks that come through our door every day report someone didn't eat in their household in the last month because there was not enough. So there is hunger in our community, and this community is going to continue to help us to make sure that doesn't happen. So thank you to the council, and thank you, Mayor Mary. We really appreciate everything you do to support us.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for all your work, too. So tonight we have a presentation of the 2018 Rescape Community Impact Award for the Artspace Loft. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members. Tonight I'd like to introduce you to Hava Blair from Minnesota Brownfields, and Steve Jansen, why don't you come up here as well. Steve is with Braun Intertech. I'm going to turn it over to Hava here in just a moment to tell us a little bit about the work of Minnesota Brownfields and the award itself. But what we're here tonight to do is to recognize the accomplishments of the Artspace Hastings Loft. And Minnesota Brownfields was fortunate enough to honor us in recognizing the work that was done on that building. And I will turn it over to Hava. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here today. And the purpose of our visit and presentation is to congratulate the City of Hastings and the Artspace organization and the Hastings Prescott Art Council and all of the project partners that were involved with this incredible project. So my organization is a nonprofit. The work that we do is to promote the efficient cleanup and reuse of contaminated sites. And so we like to recognize exemplary projects that have taken a site, a brownfield site that has previous environmental impacts and really transformed it into an asset for the community. And so I'm here to recognize that Hastings Artspace Lofts, because of the benefit that it brings not only to the residents that can now take advantage of the housing that's on that site, but to the additional vibrancy that it lends through the engagement with the arts on the site and then the connection to additional businesses and shops in downtown Hastings. So I'm really pleased to be here today and to be joined by Steve Jansen, who provided technical support on this project through Braun Intertech, and just want to formally recognize all of the hard work that went into the project, from the planning to securing the many different grant funding sources that were used to make this project a reality. It's a really significant accomplishment, and I would say that it's definitely a challenge. These projects are a challenge, and to tackle them and have such a wonderful result is a big deal for any city. So thank you so much for having me here today, and I just want to formally present the award here. We have these done by an artist who resides in Minneapolis. It's all recycled glass, so it's representative of that sense of reuse and transformation of these sites. So congratulations to the City of Hastings.
Thank you, Hava. Wait, John?
Yeah, Mayor and City Council, if you'd like to come down here for a moment, we could present the award to you and we snap a picture as well. Thank you.
Yep, let's get everybody's heads in there. Now we're good. Okay, zoom in a little bit. Good. All right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
We'll have the approval of minutes, council members. Are there any corrections to the minutes of the February 4th meeting? Seeing none, they are approved. Comments from the audience. Are there any comments from the audience? And this is not pertaining to the trail or the sidewalk. Any other comments from the audience? Okay. Council, are there any items to be considered? Seeing none, excuse me. We will move on to the consent agenda. Council, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Fulch and Councilmember, sorry.
I move to approve the.
Thank you, and Councilmember, thank you, Joe. Tonight, we will be holding, I'm sorry. I need to call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Tonight, we will hold a public hearing for the 2019 Infrastructure Improvement Project. Ryan, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, Mayor's member of the council, I am here tonight to present on the 2019 Neighborhood Improvement Project. So with that, let's get right into it.
This year's project actually has two distinct and separate geographic areas combined into one. So zooming in on Area 1, I will refer to that as the Lewis Lane neighborhood. That's just east of Dakota Pines Golf Club. That's our Area 1. You'll see, I'll get into this a little bit further, but the different colored segments indicate the street improvement type. The green is a reclaim of the streets, and the orange is a complete reconstruct of the streets. Moving on to Area 2, that's south of the Vermilion River and west of Cannon Street. You'll see it's all green, those segments, so that's a complete reclaim of that area. So just kind of backing up, why are these streets in our 2019 improvement program? And predominantly it's because of the pavement condition. So we'll just go through some photos of what we see out there from our engineering department and why these are being recommended for improvement in 2019. Here's along 19th Street, that's in that Area 1. You'll see some alligator cracking of the street. Lets us know that we have base failure, so it's not just a surface issue, it's down to the base. Here's another photo along 19th Street. I don't know if my arrow will work. Yes, it will. You can see up in the driveway, this is a sanitary sewer manhole about halfway up that driveway. We have the sanitary sewer line running up into that yard, east-west. So with a street improvement project, we have the opportunity to abandon that sanitary sewer and get it back into the street where it belongs. So just an example of another thing that we address during these projects. Here's a location on 21st Street. This is called a curb cut where stormwater drainage is supposed to flow out of. You can see sediment has accumulated over the years. Weeds are actually growing up out of it. These are a maintenance headache, and we'll be talking later in the presentation on how we're going to address things like that. Here's some conditions. Again, this is on Edgewood Street in Area 1. You can see the distresses there. They're not in one particular spot. They're actually across the entire pavement. So it's starting a rapid decline in its service life. Here's a photo example along Lewis Lane. When we talk about reclaim projects further in the presentation, you'll see, as shown in this picture, we have failing pavement surfaces, but the curb and gutter is functional. It's in good shape. So we'll talk about how we can recycle the pavement and leave the good parts of the infrastructure like the curb in place. Here's over on Manor Lane. You can see we're actually starting to, the early stages of potholes here. The alligatoring, the distresses are getting so severe, they're starting to pop out, and that's how potholes are formed, and that'll eventually work its way down through the pavement and into the gravel underneath. We also, it might be hard to see in the pictures, but you can see the curb here is not our standard concrete curb and gutter. This is actually a blacktop or a bituminous curb. So with the project, we'd be ripping all that out and putting in modern concrete curb and gutter. Another photo on Hackberry Circle. This is over in Area 2. Again, with those similar failure of pavement conditions. So, knowing kind of why those streets are in our 2019 program and seeing some real world photos of them, really, like I said earlier, our project goals, first and foremost, is to address our pavement conditions. So we want to get timely replacements on our pavement surfaces and get them addressed as budget will allow. We also are looking to modernize our concrete curb and gutter, so that'll facilitate drainage on our roadways, making them more sustainable in the future. We look for opportunities where sidewalk currently exists to improve that sidewalk or fill any gaps along the system. Now, for this year's project, as opposed to the last couple years, we only have one segment of existing sidewalk, that's along 31st Street, and we actually, I'll show a photo later, but we have a gap in the system, so we're proposing to connect that gap with the project. Also, as we're in there ripping up streets and pavements, we have the opportunity to address any aging utilities we have underneath the surface of the street. So we take a hard look at our water main pipes, our sanitary sewer pipes, and look for areas where we may need to address those, and that's included in the project as well, and we'll go through those later. Also, as we replace a water main, we also look at replacing the service line from the main to the property line that serves each individual property. So those are the goals of the project. Street improvements. So I said I'd get to the reclaim. What that is, here's a reclaim machine. I think we did this several years ago before I was here, but we have done this before. This is a reclaim machine. What it does is essentially just grinds up the blacktop surface and the underlying gravel. It mixes it together in a nice homogeneous mixture, and that's a great surface for us to work, shape, compact, and then put the new blacktop on. So that's the reclaim process. One thing I'll say about the reclaim process, we have the opportunity to do that when we have good base underneath, so that we don't have kind of a failing base for the road to sit on, and that we have good utilities, so that we've vetted through the utilities and we don't need to dig the street up further to replace those utilities. So we got to have those two things going for us to be able to do the reclaim process. As opposed to the reconstruct, that's our other street improvement being proposed in this year's project. The street improvement is a complete dig out of the pavement and the gravel materials, hauling them off site and bringing new materials in their place. This also then gives us the opportunity to, as you can see here, replace the curb line in its entirety. And we have the opportunity to dig down and address any of those failing utilities. Both the reclaim and the reconstruct project will have the new pavement surfaces put down, 2 lifts of 2 inches each. So moving on into the utility improvements, we assessed the utilities in all the project areas I showed you earlier, and really the results of those analyses led us to Area 1. Up in Area 1, we had the older materials and the type of materials that really needed to be replaced. So we're recommending that, as you can see in the blue here, all the streets in the Lewis Lane neighborhood east of Lewis Lane, those water mains are to be replaced in entirety. So the mains themselves and the services that connect the main to the property. So just from the main to the property line, that'll get a new service segment replaced. And then also you see in the reddish brown color here, that's the sanitary sewer. Years past, we did a lining program through this neighborhood. So some street segments are already lined. We can leave those in place, but others didn't get caught. So we'll be doing a lining program of the sewer on 21st, a portion of Manor Lane, Manor Court, and 18th Street. And then like I showed you earlier, that photo on 19th Street, there's a segment that serves a few residents there. We'll move that back as a full reconstruct into the center line of the street. So a photo of the water main replacement, we do need to get down 8 feet below the pavement surface. So we're digging deep, getting below that frost line with our new water main. So the old water main comes out, the new water main pipe comes in, that comes with new gate valves and hydrants so that we can properly operate the system. Here's a picture of our sewer lining process. So we actually take a liner with some resins in it and we pull that through from manhole to manhole. It goes through a clean sewer line. We clean that out first and then we pull it through. We introduce heat to the system. Here, the contractor used steam cure. You can see the steam blowing up through the far manhole. That lets the resin set up. It hardens to a hard plastic. Then we don't care if the walls crumble on the outside, that existing pipe. That liner is strong enough as a new PVC pipe, and that'll last for us long into the future. And then, like I said, as we're going along addressing these mains, water mains and sewer mains, we take the opportunity to replace the services essentially under the street surface. So we don't have any failures there that impact our newly paved road surfaces. So we'll address those as we go along and take care of the mains. Storm and drainage improvements are also a part of the project. We extend pipes into areas that aren't previously drained. So we look at some engineering standards and we make sure we have proper drainage on these streets. We also run some engineering models through. We upsize pipes when they're necessary and they're not to the capacity they should be. And we've really learned over doing several of these projects that really good drainage is key to the longevity of our roads. So we want to make sure that we address any deficient drainage areas. I mentioned earlier about the sidewalk extension. So keying in on 31st Street, you can see in the aerial here, we have a segment from Highview Knoll to Leroy along the north side of 31st Street. Gap in the sidewalk system, so with the project we have plenty of right-of-way and ability to extend that, so that's being proposed as part of the project. During our projects, boulevard trees come up. I wanted to, again, let folks know what our philosophy is this will come into play on our reconstructs, not so much those reclaim areas, but on our reconstructs, we know what the character of a neighborhood looks like if we go through without care of the mature trees that are out there. This is the difference that, we could leave a neighborhood in. We want to make sure to avoid that, so we take every effort possible to work around and use whatever techniques available to save our mature trees. So at the end of the project, really what our goal is, as you can see here on a recently finished project, get a new sustainable pavement surface with curb and gutter and restored boulevards, but still leave items in place such as the boulevard trees to that effect, so that we're preserving the character of the neighborhoods we go in and reconstruct. The street widths. So for our reconstruction areas, we have the opportunity to reduce some of those pavement widths. This is up in that area 1. We have some very wide pavements out there. Several segments are 36 feet wide. So with the reconstruct, we're proposing to narrow those down to 32 feet wide. That's plenty of room for parking on both sides. With that reduced width, we have less snow to plow. We have less pavement to maintain now and in the future. So one thing, bringing it to 32 feet wide, that would kind of standardize all streets in that neighborhood to that same width. So that's one proposal in the project, and as well as there's a couple cul-de-sacs that we're looking to take from their 100-foot diameters down to 90 feet. With the reclaim project, those street widths really can't be changed. We're leaving those good curb lines in place, so therefore the street widths would stay the same. So we're gonna only do spot repairs on that curb and gutter where we need to, but essentially the majority of the curb and gutter we left in place, therefore the street widths would stay the same. We also looked into our comprehensive planning guidance documents, and in that area 1 as well, we saw that there was a trail improvement as part as a linking up of that system, our trail system, in the comprehensive plan. So we engaged with our operations committee to go through options of how that would occur. Through that process, we actually went out and heard from the public. We also was followed up by hearing back from them in a petition signed by about 30, I think it was 30 property owners in this area. You can see on the map there, the orange dots represent who signed the petition. Received that petition. One point of note I did want to make, the petition was to stop the trail essentially, but an item to point out was they did talk about the assessments going up for the project if a trail was placed. That's actually not accurate. If the trail goes in or it doesn't go in, the assessments stay the same. So just wanted to let everybody know where we stood on that. We received this information and brought it back to our operations committee of the council. The committee did meet 4 times on this, so that's quite a large amount of times, more so than our standard public project. The committee heard from our Parks and Rec director on a presentation of the comprehensive plan. Like I said, we gathered feedback from the neighbors that included open house meetings, phone calls from us out to the neighborhood, and then reviewed and received a petition as well. It's important to the ops committee, that our operations committee, that They did want to take our comprehensive planning seriously, so this was this issue was really vetted out. They ultimately decided to recommend an on-street trail. So they recommended to go with an on-street trail and remove the separated trail completely from the project. So in order to connect up the system, it was proposed to include wayfinding signage, as you see in the right-hand corner of the slide, to kind of let folks that maybe aren't from the area of how they could link up and connect up. That in addition to some signage, or sorry, some marking on the roads to identify to the vehicles that they would be sharing the road with bicyclists and pedestrians. So I got a slide on the next page that kind of shows a little bit more of how that looks, but I also wanted to say that the committee recommended that there was also drainage improvements in the rear yard swale between Lewis Lane and Ridge Lane from 19th to 21st Street. So that included fixing some deficiencies in the ability for us to get down and maintain that swale in the future. And I have some photos of that coming up. So on Lewis Lane, the direct connecting route of the comprehensive plan linking trail system, this is kind of the concept we're looking at. Now, we're not proposing sidewalks, that's not in the project, but more importantly, between the curb and gutter pictured here, the concept is we have such a low volume of traffic on the road, vehicle traffic, and the speeds that we measured were all essentially below the speed limits out there. So low speeds, low volume on the data we collected gave us an opportunity to come up with this concept, and essentially we would just mark the pavement along this route and they could share. Bicycles are legally allowed to be on the road anyway, so there's really no legalities with this for us. We're just making that awareness of you're sharing the road and be on the lookout. So something to help a little bit. And then getting back to the rear yard swale, this is 19th Street looking south in this rear yard right-of-way that the city owns. You can see the overgrowth and vegetation. So with the project, we're looking to remove that overgrowth, regrade it, reseed it, with the ability to mow and maintain it in the future. Here's kind of looking in further to this backyard drainage swale. Like I said, we're looking at opportunities where we can to soften the steep grade so we can get up and mow the area, or where areas that need to be that steep, we put it, a low mow or low growth mix that doesn't need to be mowed. Can't see it in here because it's buried, but there are some drainage outlet structures to this swale that are buried. And so with the project, again, we would dig those out, grade them to drain, and fix any deficient pipe associated with the burying of it. Here was that curb cut you saw earlier on 21st Street. This is where water builds up, ices over, gets onto our street, and creates an unsafe situation. So this is a situation where we'd look to close that curb and drop in a catch basin instead. Take the maintenance requirement and repeated requirement out, put a catch basin in, and that will carry with some storm sewer to the north and dump out into the swale. So addressing that situation. So all these project costs are project improvements that I just went through have a total project cost of just under $4.2 million. The funding sources are divvied up by bonded debt to the city, assessed by private property owners, and come from our sewer or wastewater fund and our water fund. So there's the breakdown of those funding sources. I did want to say assessments, actually, I'm not including those tonight. Those are discussed at our March 18th meeting. I'll be sending out individual statements and notice of that assessment hearing date later this week, by the end of the week. So more to come on that. Where we're at currently with the project timeline, tonight we're here to listen to the hearing, or the scope of improvements, and then council will conduct a public hearing. After the public hearing, staff would be looking for council to consider the resolution to adopt the project as presented or any notes of modification that you see fit. and then ultimately authorize advertisement for bids. Like I said in the last slide, March 18th, next month, we'll conduct the assessment hearing. And then a month later, in April 15th, we'd be looking for award to a contractor for construction of the project. The project could begin as early as May and would extend to October. Again, for the residents here tonight and out listening, just wanted to put a plug in for our communications campaign. We do try as hard as we can at the staff level to keep people updated. Once construction starts, we will be doing a weekly update. It'll let folks know what's going on that week and what's planned for the upcoming week. We've already gotten several communication surveys back that we sent out to all the impacted properties on the project. Lets us know how they want to be communicated with, whether that's text or email. So we already have those lists created, so as soon as we start these updates, we'll shoot that out as folks indicated to us how they want to be communicated with. For those folks that don't like those options or don't have those options, we will also put hard copies of these updates each week in a centrally located mailbox on the project, so each area will have its own. So, or you know, give us a call if those opportunities don't work for you, but we want you to be informed. When we have critical activities specific to a location or a property, such as curing of concrete in front of one's driveway, we will do door hangers or talk to those residents one-on-one to make sure they're informed of those critical activities, and they'll know what's going on and what they need to do to facilitate that portion of the project. Our city website will be updated as a dedicated project web page. Like I said, contact staff. We have the engineering department number on the website or in this presentation. Reach out to us. And then look for our city vehicles on site. We'd rather have you come to city staff than talk to the contractor or one of the subcontractors. They may not know what's going on, or they don't speak for the city. We want the communication to go through us so we can keep people informed and make the project go as smoothly as we can. And then when all is said and done, at the end of the year, we will send out a post-construction survey, so we want to hear back from folks of what went well, what didn't go well. We want to constantly and continuously improve our process. And with that, I'll turn it back to the council for any questions you may have on the presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. I will now open the public hearing. If you'd want to come up and leave name your name and your address, and you can make your comments. No? None?
My name is Lindsay Anderson. I live at 1953 Lewis Lane. My question is regarding the paintings on the street. It kind of showed like two arrows with a bicyclist. Is that the extent of the bike lane? We were kind of told there would maybe be like an actually painted on lane on the street that we could park on and drive on. So I just want to make sure that I have the right understanding.
Ryan?
Yeah, thanks for your question, and council as well. The pavement markings are essentially as indicated in that photo, so there will not be a separated lane or a stripe painted along Lewis Lane. Just at every intersection, we intend to put the stencil of the bicyclist to notify vehicles. So that's the current proposal. If this is something, pavement markings are something that over time, if we learn something different, we definitely can look at ways to best facilitate. But our current proposal is just to have a shared street concept without a dedicated bike lane. Parking would be allowed on both sides of Lewis Lane.
One more question. I don't know if you want to stay. You can sit. What is the longevity of paintings on the road? With Minnesota being, you know, you do a lot of snow plowing, we do a lot of salt. Who's going to maintain these as they slowly chip up over time?
Yeah, great question. We have two options. There's just a latex paint that, yes, every couple years, that needs to be replaced. But there's also other stronger materials that we would be looking at putting down. They're plastics or poly preform materials, and they can last up to 7 years, 5 to 7 years. So we can put a little more robust pavement markings down, and that's what we would be looking to do on the bike symbols.
Okay. One more question I have too, just a side note. I was kind of the one that kind of spearheaded a lot of the petition, and a lot of comments I had from a lot of neighbors was just we do have some foot traffic, especially around a lot of the paths just in town in general. There is a lot of dog waste that people have been just commenting on. I have a sister who lives on Northridge Drive, and they have a dog waste, like there's a thing with garbage bags you can pull off. How do we go about, can we put some more of those throughout town? Because I know around the ponding basin, especially in the wintertime and the summer, I'm a huge walker, and it's a huge problem. Also along the Dakota Pines on Southview Drive, I had a client recently who fell, and she said that she crawled to the little wooden post, and there was dog waste all over, and it was just so disheartening in Hastings to see things like this. So I didn't know if that was another thing that we could possibly look into, because with doing the petition, it was a comment that I heard from a lot of people with just when we were talking about doing a path was what about the extra dog waste that could happen if you don't have a dog. So just throwing that out there while I'm up here. So, but yeah, that's all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lindsay. We'll pass those notes on to our Parks and Rec. Anyone else like to speak to this issue? No, this is, oh, okay. We'll just,
I'm Madeline McDonald, and I live on Manor Lane. Me and my husband have got disability license plates. Where are we going to park when you dig up the street? Are all those streets are going to be dug up the same time, or what? And it's a long walk for.
sure. Ryan, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, during construction, we write it right into our requirements of the contractor that access has to be allowed to residents. That includes emergency services. So they're gonna have to do things like strategically only remove some streets or portions thereof to allow access. So essentially, you're gonna have access throughout the whole project. There will be those rare instances, like when we're pouring the end of your driveway, to allow concrete to cure, we're gonna ask that you park out in the street and not damage what was recently done. So we'll work with you one-on-one, or if you have any special handicap needs, we have 2 inspectors out on this large project. They'll be able to kind of work with you and your concerns once we get going on the project.
And the same with the mail? How about mail? The mailman won't be able to go through all these streets.
Yep, same with mail as far as they'll have to be allowed access. They would, sometimes what happens, the mailboxes might have to come down temporarily, and the contractor would work to relocate those with the post office. And so there'd be kind of a centrally located temporary mailbox location for maybe grouped or something like that. So we require that of the contractor who works directly with the post office.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Ron Rother. I live 680 South Park Court, along Hackberry. Just a couple things. If you have a photo or picture of looking at Hackberry, because I don't really, and if all the projects are set in stone already, or if there's going to be some public feedback, Hackberry looks like it's far from needing replacement. I seen Hackberry Circle look pretty bad, but I'm curious about Hackberry, if that needs to be redone. And I guess that's it. It's all set in stone already.
Yeah, and this question's come up in this project area a few times, and it's a good question. As you look today, what we have out there on some streets is what we call a thin overlay or a skim patch. So I believe it was approximately 6 years ago, we did a skim patch. So we basically put a Band-Aid over the roads that you see in the photos. That was just a Band-Aid. They're starting to crack up, and that's just a thin, non-structural layer. It'll decline at a rapid pace. So that is essentially a Band-Aid that's covering what's truly under the road surface. So.
And then, well, just, there seems to be worse roads than, obviously I'm trying to save money. There seems to be worse roads in Hackberry and Hastings, but there's not much I can do about that, so.
Yeah, again.
Like Cannon Street is pretty rough compared to Hackberry.
Yep, and we do have to geographically locate these projects together. Cannon is in our capital improvement program. It will be getting done, but we try to group these projects together and get them all done at one time so we're not leapfrogging. So yes, our temporary Band-Aid has lasted longer than what we projected, but I promise you that the pavement surface underneath is as distressed as you see in those other photos.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth McDonald. I'm from 1918 Manor Lane.
Thank you, Kenneth.
And according to your plans that you had on TV and that I know process has gone through from 21st Street. I don't know how far they got putting in this new liner. But we've been in Manor Lane for 46 years. And I'm sure that old sewer pipe ain't looking too hot, because I've been just about every year, right about the end of the driveway where there used to be the, from the center of the street out so far. That's been gone a long time ago now, but I've been just waiting around to see if they were ever going to replace this. And what I found out is they're just running a plastic liner through. Now, I don't know if they went as far as our driveway or anything is, but I've got a crack that I've been putting up with for a few years that I don't want to do it unless I know the city going to come in and put new sewer line in or not. And so that's kind of my concern right now, because why should I go replace that sewer line all the way out to the street, and when they're just going to leave this plastic line in there, whether that's going to cure anything or not, I don't know. So that's one of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, can I ask if you're on the north side of 19th Street or the south side? Sir, are you on the north side of 19th? You're on the south side of.
The old original Manor Lane.
North side of 19th Street, yes. You're north.
19th to Manor Court, and that is north. I'm from 19th Street going south to 21st. There would have been 2 blocks there, but our house was built in 63, right in the middle.
Okay.
There's just been a street there, but there wasn't.
Okay.
Just one area that I'm concerned about, because 46 years we've been living there, and I haven't seen nothing done yet.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for this. It'll rectify some things.
Sure. From 19th Street to south to 21st Street, that has previously been lined. So we've already lined that sewer. And like I said, once the liner runs through and it cures, that's like putting a brand new PVC pipe in place. So it's a great technology that we use across the entire city. So any issues with your private service line, that's something that you would need to address. And
I'm gonna have to hook up to that now. Is that gonna create a problem when I replace that sewer line to the street?
Right, I mean, I'd recommend if you're planning to do that now, prior to, do it early in the project so that, you don't need to pay for the patching of the street.
Trying to state that if I do it now and go out to the street and tear that up, and you guys come along and say, well, that's not the way we're gonna do it, we're gonna change it, and I get reassessed for another.
Yeah, no, we can work with you to coordinate that. So why don't I leave you my card and we can discuss, okay?
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? Welcome.
Mayor, Council, Ryan. I'm Bruce Ganrud. I live 1895 Lewis Lane, which is right on the corner of Lewis and 19th. I think the trail issue is pretty much resolved, so I was at the committee meeting for that. I'm right in the section where they're going to narrow the street from 36 feet to 32 feet, which doesn't bother me. But I heard, I think at the public information one back in December, that they wanted to correct the angle of that street, which means they're going to move to the south. I thought I heard like 4 feet or 6 feet, which is going to enlarge a yard on one side of the street and shrink it on the other. They're saying that if Lewis Lane is north and south, 19th, east and west, and there's a T right there, if it's at an angle, I mean, I pulled up Google Earth and looked at it, and I've lived there for 22 years, and it's not a problem if there's an angle to it. So I guess that question on if we're going to shift it that far, what would be the reasoning for doing that? Seems like not a good use of tax dollars to move a road that's not causing a problem. Your turn, Ryan.
Okay. Yes, didn't get into that detail in the presentation, but yes, that's accurate. We on 19th Street, currently the edge of the street, I think, is actually on top of or outside of the north right-of-way line. So if you look at the right-of-way we own, we technically wouldn't have the ability to even reconstruct that because you need some space beyond the edge of your curb. So it was just put in a location when it was originally constructed in an incorrect location. We try to center our streets within the right-of-way so we have proper boulevards for any future private utility expansions or unknowns. So what we're doing, since it's a reconstruct, rather putting back it in a location where there's a problem with our right-of-way, we are looking to center that, but narrow it at the same time to lessen the impacts. But you're right, it's up to 6 feet in some locations that will shift to get it closer to center of right-of-way.
And so that could have significant issue on my yard or neighbor across the street, existing fences. I don't know where the right-of-way line is versus where the street is now. So it's not really to correct an angle of the street, right?
No.
It's just to get it in the city-owned right-of-way.
Correct.
Okay. So I did have some concerns about that, and why are we correcting a 1.2 degree angle in a street T intersection? It's a waste of dollars. So anyway, the other part was on some of the streets they've redone lately, in particular Westview and Southview that were done recently. It seems like they paved them just as flat as a tabletop, and we don't have drainage to the gutters there. I mean, water collects, ice freezes in the middle of the street. Is there going to be a crown in these new streets that are going in?
Yeah, I can't speak to those specific situations, but our proposed street section is a 2% minimum crown. So we definitely understand that and take that very seriously with several tools of our inspectors to test the pavement, or sorry, the gravel surface. We call it string lining before we ensure that it's at a 2%. So when the paver comes through, it's at a 2%. So we have methods to do that. And if the contractor didn't, that'd be subject for them to correct on their own dime. So yes, it'll have a crown for sure.
I just wanted to mention that because those Westview and Southview certainly seem to be flat, and they do get puddles in the middle of the street, and they freeze into ice, and can't be good for the pavement either, so.
Sir, I actually can speak to that because my in-laws live on Westview, and there was some correction of some grading because they had a pool of water under their mailbox, and they actually did correct some of the problem that was causing that. So I think that it is taken into account. At least on Westview, I know that grading was fixed so that the water doesn't pool in that specific place. So I know it is considered.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Todd Herbst, 3275 Lester Avenue.
Welcome.
I've got a question about this March 18th hearing, the assessment hearing. What exactly is that going to cover? Because I have a question about how the assessment process goes, why somebody on the corner lot. You know, I have two roads in front of me that I try to keep my kids away from both roads. It's not a benefit to me. Why am I being assessed a couple $1,000s more than somebody else that lives? Why isn't it just a flat fee? We're doing the roads by your house. You should all be charged accordingly. I just have questions in that manner. I don't fully
So
understand
March
that.
18th will be the night that we'll
That'd be the night
discuss
to ask
that.
that question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name is
Good
David
evening,
Gringo, and I
welcome.
live at 705 Bolton Drive. I don't know if the IT person can put the photo up of Area 2, but I am that 160 feet that goes west from Hackberry Drive towards, on Bolton till it's west.
You wanted,
Area 2. There you go. So this, if I can use his pointer, is my house right here, where the pointer is. And so that 160 feet affects myself and one other property. And I'm just kind of curious, when I did the research on this specific area, the houses that are to the west of that are all built in the late 1990s. All the properties to the east of that, which are part of that Vulcan Drive reclamation project, going up to Hackberry, were then built in the mid-80s. So our houses are all 10 years newer, and then even newer than that going further west. So I'm wondering what the justification is for that extra 160 feet that you're just making the corner and coming around. And so I'm getting an assessment on that for this project. My concern is then when the remaining project going out to Bulkin, out to 31st is done, then they're gonna come by the front of my house again and go right to the end of where Hackberry is. I'm gonna get twice because they're gonna tie that into the Hackberry project as well. So I'm looking at 135 feet on the frontage and 95 feet on the side of my corner lot.
I apologize. Are you talking about, if everybody can see the pointer, are you talking about this segment here?
Yes, I am. That's 160 feet to the west from the intersection of Hackberry on Bulkin Drive.
Right. So the limits of the project were determined because when this development was originally constructed, it was constructed to that 160-foot location, and I believe there was a temporary cul-de-sac actually put in at the time before the development continued. So this pavement was put down and aged the same as the remainder of the neighborhood.
Correct.
So that's why it continued on over. You will get an assessment with this project. You will not get an assessment with any extension improvement from that point to the west.
Correct. But my understanding, the property on the area to the east, those houses were all built 10 years prior to any of the other houses to the west. There was no traffic on that end cul-de-sac for 10 years going into this. So why would there be a necessity to, at this point, revamp that section of asphalt when there hasn't been travel on it for the first 10 years that it existed?
Well, I would argue, I mean, it's pavement age, it's the distresses we've seen and recorded out there. That was a turnaround utilized even if their homes.
It was a dead end. There was no homes there for the first 10 years.
Well, it could have been used for turnaround for plowing purposes and whatnot. So I'm age and distresses that we observed. So that's how the limits were determined.
I don't know if this project is actually set in stone or you have the ability to line item, but I would encourage the council to line item that 160 feet from the intersection of Hackberry further west. I do not see a need that 160 feet be included in this reclamation project. When they come around the corners and they've done other things, they certainly haven't done the tarring and the mill grind over the top of that to continue. They always do it along the same portion of Hackberry Drive as they're coming along with that. So we seem to be included in the houses to the west when they do a layover or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what it is that you call it when they put down the tar and the chip seal. We're included in that with the houses to the west, not to the ones to the east that this project seems to be included in. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? If none, I will close the public hearing. Council, any discussion? Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to follow up on the last gentleman's question, I would defer to Nick and Ryan if what I heard your concern is that you just don't want to be double dinged, correct? So that the next time that the street improvements come through and they're to the west of your house, that you don't want to be double assessed for street improvements. Did I capture that correctly, sir?
I don't want to be unnecessary. I understand that there is a need to, should I come to approach or?
Sure.
I understand that there's a need to make sure that the city streets are maintained properly and that everything is taken care of. However, like I said, I've been lumped in with everything to the west. And so if we're now including this 160 feet to the east in that project, when they come back, so now all the houses from our point westward are all built in 2004, 2005, and so forth, 10 years after our house was. Now, 10 years from now, when they go to do a reclamation project, are they just going to stop 160 feet short? Or are they going to continue through to that intersection at Hackberry and include probably right through the intersection? And so therefore, I'm going to have 160 feet done this 10 years. 10 years later, I'm going to have another 160 feet done across the front as well.
Sure.
And so that's what I'm concerned about, in addition to the 95 feet on the side that I have. So
I can understand you being concerned because assessments are hefty, and so I would be concerned as well. I look to Ryan and Nick for an answer, to your concerns. I know that we had a 5-year neighborhood improvement plan. I've seen the map, but I didn't memorize it as to which neighborhoods were going to be done in the next 5 years moving forward. But gentlemen, would you like to make any comment about that? I'm assuming that you wouldn't double up on the same section of roadway, but.
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, it's challenging to try to go into our project developments and look at what was done. I mean, a lot of unique things are done in developments. They put stub streets out. They do different and unique things at intersecting and connecting points. So we have this challenge. This isn't uncommon. You can see it down on Highview Knoll and 31st Street. We extended it there. We do our best job in segmenting out our pavement analysis. This goes back to how we rate the streets to come up with when they're reconstructed. That is a point that is in our system. It's in our charts and graphs. We've got age of pavement. We've reviewed the distresses. I've talked with our team that does that work to double and triple check. That point is marked in stone and will be recorded as an improvement type in our records. And so we would pick up from that point and move forward. So that's what I can tell you from the engineering perspective. We can argue all day about whether that was the right decision, but we do things very systematically and on purpose. And so believe me, that wasn't just a oops on an intersection and carry it forward. That will be tracked and recorded, and it's done for good reason.
Thank you, Ryan. I have yet to meet an engineer that is not systematic, so I full-heartedly believe you there. So thank you for that. I had one other comment, though, that I would like to ask about. I apologize, I haven't been a part of the Operation Committee meetings. I didn't realize that there were 4 of them. Bravo to those of you who were on that. So Councilmember Lund, Councilmember Leifeld, and who was the third? Councilmember Pasonic. So, so thank you for serving on that. My question has to do with that area between, it was streets, it was 19th Street to 21st Street. It was, you called it a swell area, a swell? Swell area. And so when I was looking at that, I started to think about drainage and, you know, what can we do to make our areas more sustainable? And about a year and a half ago, I took the best Dakota County class on creating rain gardens. And I was just curious if there was any discussion in that area where you're talking about creating a catch basin, about putting a rain garden in the section of it that was prior to that to help capture the water so that they're not flowing into the wastewater system. Just curious because I know that the county has been trying to make efforts to create those kinds of scenarios.
To answer your question, Councilmember Fulch, we did look at it, we did consider it, we did model it. That in certain areas of that swale, there's natural infiltration already occurring. So this particular area has been built up with fines and sediments and has kind of compacted and wouldn't be a good candidate. So what we're trying to do is pipe that water further north to where we have sandier soils in place where it'll naturally infiltrate in that swale. And then when it is saturated or large events, then that swale will continue on north. So there is, I would argue that there's already kind of a natural infiltrating feature to that swale. And so we didn't really see the need to take that any further because it already functions that way.
Oh, wonderful.
In certain parts, yes.
Okay, all righty. Well, maybe in the future then.
Yeah, I'll just, a plug for future CIP, we did get some Clean Water Act money to do water quality enhancements.
Mm-hmm.
So in future CIPs, I think next year or the following, we do have some offline rain gardens going in to
Really?
get enhancements. So
Terrific.
we look for every opportunity and look for funding, and you'll be seeing that in a future year. So
Thank you, I'm very supportive of that. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, Tim. Yes, Councilmember Brox.
Ryan, can I ask another question just about, this is about assessments, but it has to do with, I know when you said, so I know we're going to address this in the future, but you said with or without the trail, the assessments would be roughly the same. The same. There's no difference in cost to the homeowner.
correct.
Could you talk a little bit about that, just because it's not 100% logical for those who don't understand all the funding mechanisms? So maybe it would just be an education for us to understand that a little bit.
Sure. I'll call it a preview to March 18th City Council meeting. Yeah, essentially, so it is kind of a difficult concept to wrap your head around in a sense. But what we do in the city of Hastings, what our ordinance is set up and what we follow in our city ordinances is we actually go out and get an appraisal for the street and drainage improvements only. So we hire a third-party appraiser. They come out and they look at the street and drainage improvements. We don't even tell them a trail's going in, so they wouldn't have no means of knowing. But we give them those improvements by street, and they do a rigorous assessment of properties in Hastings and previous years, properties in similar developments across the metro, and they do a sales comparison approach. They look at what the value of the property is before the project, you apply the improvement, and what is the value after the project. And we get that information, we take the mid-range, not the high, not the low, we take the middle range, and then we take 10% off of that number, and that's required by ordinance. That number then is split by the front foot, and then we take that front foot cost and we apply that to the neighborhoods. And then we do a gut check of, okay, what did we assess last year, in the previous year, in the previous year? Are we on track? So hopefully that helps.
So is it fair to say the trail funding comes from another source?
Correct. That's that bonding money that we're talking about, general tax levy.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vaughn?
Thank you, Your Honor. Nick and Ryan, this is a large project. The thing I see here, it's in 2 different locations in the city. And I have heard from some residents concerned about timing. I get it, we're gonna go May till October to get this project done. Some people have events that they wanna try to work around as much as we can. I know you guys are good about that. My question is, do we work with the contractor to say, all right, go do that side of town and then come over here? Or are they just kinda all over wherever the weather takes them, where their equipment takes them? Or will we separate this into 2 different segments this summer?
Yes, I've received that question a lot as well from our residents. What I can say is we try to bid it out without some of those constraints, because we try to bid early and we try to keep it open. That gives us the best pricing from the contractors, and it gives us good contractors become interested in our project, which is sometimes even more essential than the lowest price, right? So we get good attention to our projects when we don't put those restrictions on. What I can say, we also write the specifications to say, once they start in an area, they have to work contiguously. They have to continue on that area until that first lift of pavement is down. So they can't start in area 2 and get to a certain unfinished point and jump over to area 1 just because it suits them or their crews at that time. So we will be watching for that constant improvement. We will know once we have a contractor and a pre-construction meeting in early May, so before the project starts, where they're going to start first, how they're going to stage it. We will share that information with those folks as early as we can, but really the contractor dictates the schedule. We just mandate that they continue on and they don't pull off, making it longer exposure to the project. So once they get started, it should move pretty fast, but don't really want to dictate which area, because that's a strategic bidding process for that individual contractor, and we don't want to strip that away.
I appreciate your effort. I think that's important that you guys are doing it. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Council? Yes, Councilmember Balsonic.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. A couple of things directed really primarily at the property owners. First of all, I want to commend your neighborhood for not only doing the speed limit, but going less than the speed limit. That is so heartening to hear, and I'm not being facetious about that. So often we get comments from neighborhoods about the speeding and so forth that is going on. So that is really a commendable fact. Now, along with that, however, now the study showed approximately 100 vehicles per day, and that was on Lewis Lane. Okay, on Lewis, and that's where the speed monitoring was going on as well. Once these streets are completed, there is sometimes a tendency to increase your speed because it looks really neat, it's nice and smooth, you know, brand new street. And I'm mentioning this not because of you folks in the neighborhood thinking about going faster, but we're moving a bike lane onto a street. And irregardless of the markings, it does introduce, you know, a level of traffic that you may not have been used to before. You're going to have people coming through that are not perhaps part of the neighborhood as they're going through, you know, to hook up with the other ends of the trails, either on the north or the south side. So word of caution on that, to be aware that there will be different kinds of vehicular traffic, not necessarily motorized, on that. Another thing that I'd like to point out, and I'm speaking here from a pretty good level of experience. We live on 7th Street and Spring off the corner there. And in the last 10 years, our neighborhood has experienced a street reconstruction just as complicated and immense as what you will be going through. I have really been very pleased with the way the contractors work and the way that the city staff has worked with the neighbors to make sure that there is good communication and that everybody who needs to get in and out of their property is really respected as far as that goes. Now, there will be, I don't know how you're going to work at this time because we've got two fairly separate project sites. We've got Bryce and we've got Chad. Dave Chalmers, I'm sorry. These are two city staff employees. They work with the Public Works, and they've got red trucks, okay? And it says City of Hastings on it. They are there. I marvel at the hours that they keep. They are there before the contractors, you know, turn the equipment on every day, and they are there until the contractors are done at the end of the day. Now, there will be construction going on, you know, outside of normal business hours. I think there is a limit starting at 6 a.m. or something like that. No? 7 a.m. Okay. So they can't really turn the equipment on before 7. But if you have a concern, look for those red trucks. Look for the two city employees. They'll be there before you leave for work in the morning, and they will be there after you get back from work in the late afternoon. And you will find them to be very responsive to any concerns that you might have. It's a real credit to the lines of communication that the Public Works Department is making a very strong effort to do. So if there's more than just the weekly newsletter that you get, if there's more than just the email that you get, more than just what is hung on your door, find those guys, and they will be very, very helpful to you on that. And I think that takes care of everything that I wanted to say. It will be a long effort, and of course, weather has a lot to do with the completion, the timetable on that. Last summer's project, which was, excuse me, on the west side of Spring Street in the old historic area, got behind because of weather. But they were able to catch up, and the project was completed I think on time, as a matter of fact. So there are ways that they can do some catching up. But if you don't see some things happening, very good reasons for them not happening. And hopefully you'll see, a lot of things going on at that point. Also, don't be afraid to contact your city council member who would be living in those two areas. I'm not one of those, but I'll pass the buck on to those two. And whatever questions you have can certainly be, pointed in the direction of the city council. But again, the red trucks are going to be very, very helpful. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lund?
Thank you, Your Honor. Point of clarification, you had mentioned there are some spot repair, curb spot repair situations. There's a home on 590 31st Street. Resident spoke with me today about it, as a matter of fact, and they actually have 2 aprons on their property, but only 1 driveway. And the second apron has never been used and will never be used because I believe it goes to their kitchen or something. So what he's asking, and I think it's a reasonable question, is since the sidewalk will be going through at that point anyway, would we be taking that apron out and replacing it with a curb, and then replacing with grass boulevard too? So looked at it on a map, and it seems reasonable to me, especially since we're going through there and doing that. So I would ask that be looked at, and if there's no real logical reason to have that apron there anymore, that we get rid of it and build that into the project.
Could you repeat the address, Trevor?
You got it, 590 31st Street.
Yeah, and this is one, we were talking about Dave Chalmers earlier. He brought this up to me, indicated it doesn't look like it would be used, planned on take it out in our quantities, but we'll go talk to that resident in construction and confirm. So already on the radar screen, good to hear that you've heard from him. We'll take the notes back and make sure it's done on the plans.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Just one more thing. Yeah, we did meet a lot on this, and it's good because we talked through a lot and we got great feedback from a lot of residents. And this is hard sometimes. We're asking people to contribute financially as well. So these aren't necessarily always easy discussions and decisions to make, but we have the safety and quality of the town to think about, and one of the things that entails is good roadways. So, as we make these decisions, we have to look at our overall scope, but also look at the comprehensive plans that we have in place, because they're there for a reason. We've all collectively decided on these are the things that we are going to be marching towards for the next decades, and that's been community involvement, council involvement, staff involvement, professional outsiders and so forth that come together and create this huge document, which is our guide for kind of how we make decisions. It's not necessarily hard and fast, but we always try to steer towards that. So why am I saying this? We had this trail, and I'll be honest, looked awesome. Wow, that's great, this nice trail, and it goes right through the back, and it'll be pretty, and because we have some in our neighborhood that go through neighborhoods, or areas like that, and it's nice. So that's why we have feedback. That's why we go to these venues and invite you to come and talk, because we don't know everything. We're just a few people, and we're doing our best, but we're not always going to know exactly what you want. So we really appreciate your feedback. However, we can't always do exactly what's being requested, because we still have to do what's right for the big picture. That's why we are hopefully moving forward with this trail system as is. It's not exactly what we had imagined at first, but it still commits to that concept of a connected trail system. And a question was asked about the striping and so forth. We decided to take the lowest level of commitment, I guess, on this and wait to see how this develops. And if we need to do something at some other point in time, then we'll look at that. But based on the studies that our team has done, there's no real reason why we need to worry about the traffic or speeds like Councilmember Balsonic had mentioned and so forth. So I'm talking for a long time, and I normally don't, at least in public. But the reason I'm saying this, I want to make it very clear that the comprehensive plan was important, at least in my decision here, because it's a commitment to everybody that can't just be disregarded as something we just put together and shelve. So with that, I'll hand it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lund. So Councilmember Balsonic.
Thank you. That did bring to mind what Councilmember Lund is talking about. The city is not vacating that swale area. That still is city property. And I don't want to start any controversies, but at some point, someday, another council may decide that a trail does need to go through that area. So I don't want to get a crystal ball out and say it's going to happen, but understand that with us saying we're not putting a trail in today does not negate the city or a future city council from putting a trail in. That could certainly happen someday. I don't know if I'll be on the council at that point or not, but do understand. And because I got a couple of people who called me about that, and I said, well, we are going to improve that area with the swale, a little better drainage and what have you. It does make the public aware that there is something going on there that belongs to the city. And you may have somebody walking their dog, taking a jog down that particular right-of-way someday. But it is city property. So it is something to be advised. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add to everyone else, thank you for the job that you've done, because I think this really shows what the council is trying to put out there to the residents, that we are here to listen, and these guys work tremendously hard and long hours to make it work. So thank you. Council, I will seek a motion. Councilmember Vaughn.
I'll make the motion, Your Honor, to order the improvements into the approving of the plans and authorize the advertisement for bids for the project 2019-1.
May I have a second? Councilmember Balsonic. All opposed, or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that's good. Tonight we have a resolution before us asking for council support to Xcel Energy. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you to all of those who are leaving right now. Thank you for joining us in the audience. Have a good evening. I'm bringing forward a resolution of support for Xcel Energy's commitment to serve all of their customers with zero carbon electricity by 2050. Additionally, Xcel Energy is going to be committing by 2030 to have 85% of their of their electricity being zero carbon, and that'll be within their Upper Midwest Energy Plan. And so it's really commendable, the commitment that Xcel Energy has put forward. And so I strongly believe in applauding private industry when they take the lead without waiting for government regulations to do what's best for our environment and best for their business. Much of this stems from reports that have come out in the last year showing that climate change is happening much faster than which was anticipated. This November, the federal government actually released, it was around Thanksgiving, their National Climate Assessment, which states that the U.S. average temperature has increased by 1.3 to 1.9 degrees Fahrenheit since 1895, but most of that actually has happened since 1970. The climate is changing, and that the warming of the past 50 years is primarily due to human-induced emissions of heat-trapping gases. These emissions come mainly from burning coal, oil, and gas. Temperatures are projected to rise another 2 to 4 degrees in most areas of the United States over the next few decades, and we're already seeing the impacts of, 80% of our coral reefs are already dead, and they think that they're dead beyond repair. And that's just with 2 degrees ocean rising temperatures. Just today on Minnesota Public Radio, they had an in-depth report updating with new information, new projections. And they were saying that as early as 2050, if we keep on the course that we're on, that we could see up to 100 million refugees, climate change refugees throughout our world. And so, it affects business, it affects national security, it affects a lot more than a lot of us are willing to admit. So Hastings is currently participating in the Xcel Energy's Partners for Energy program, and we have been a hydroelectric producing city now. Has it been the last 20 years, Julie? I believe it's 20 or 30 years, something like that, where
30.
We've had 30. Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. And so I thought as local leaders, it would be great, to officially support the efforts of Xcel Energy in their commitment to being carbon-free with their energy. I know that Conservation Minnesota is requesting of other local government agencies to give recognition to Xcel Energy to help, give public support for business doing the right thing. So I have in front of you just, it's a simple resolution, just kind of stating some whereases about that commitment and in regards to carbon-free energy. And I could read it all, but it's in front of you, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I get 3 questions as I seen this in our packet. Councilmember Fultz, this may be for you. First, or the city, did Xcel Energy ask us to approve a resolution? Would be my first question. Then my second one is, what's the value of this for the residents of Hastings? What are we going to do? Our job is to make sure we, in my opinion, great example is put good streets and road construction projects back together. But the third one, it states in this resolution that we're in partnerships. And are we agreeing to something by us agreeing to this? Are we agreeing to something for the future? I would go the other way and say, I think Xcel Energy should be thanking us, sending us a note saying, thanks for helping with our plan of our goal that we're trying to do, because we do provide hydroelectricity, renewable energy. We sell it back to Xcel through the contract. And we made part of our industrial park part of the shovel-ready project through the Xcel Energy program. So I see it the other way around. I do not see the value of us signing this agreement or resolution of whatever it's called for a private industry, because I think we better be ready to start signing these for every industry every business that's in our community is going to want a resolution. I would too, if I owned a thing, saying, why don't you do that for me too? So I encourage our colleagues to say, let's stop and think about this before we start a precedence of thanking a business for having a goal, because I think every business in town has a goal to do good things. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So Councilmember Vaughn had a number of questions there. The first was Xcel Energy, did they approach us and ask us to adopt an ordinance? No, they did not ask for any resolution of support. I believe strongly that it behooves us as local leaders to support our businesses when we see them taking on very ambitious goals. I mean, this isn't any small thing to make all of their energy be renewable by 2050, and with the majority of that, actually, it's going to be achieved by 2030. They're a leader in our state and the entire upper Midwest, and we should be, commending businesses for doing the right thing, and rather than, the traditional, government role of dictating regulations and things of that nature, I applaud them for being proactive and wanting to stand up and serve us as their customers with clean, renewable energy, and particularly since now that the costs of renewable energy have come down and they are very, very competitive with traditional carbon-based energy. And so, renewable energy is a big deal here in Minnesota. There's already over 50,000 jobs in Minnesota, and so it's a jobs-rich industry, and Xcel Energy is a huge partner within our region. They're a big employer, just on our border there, and they've stepped up, as you had said. They've stepped up, and they've been a partner with our city in helping to promote also the Xcel Energy Partners in Energy program. And so, yeah, I think it all starts local, right? Everything starts local, and I think that it's important to just commend their commitment to our environment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Balsanic?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would not be supportive of voting in favor of this resolution. I think it is the kind of thing that would best be recognized by perhaps the Chamber of Commerce rather than the city. I'm concerned about playing some favorites here because we have other energy entities that serve the city of Hastings. Centerpoint Energy is one, Dakota Electric is another one, and it starts to show some favoritism now. So much for that. The other thing is, I don't know what Xcel Energy's plan is for meeting this commitment. And I get concerned when I don't see what special interests or what community interests they might either be paying attention to or not pay attention to. It makes me uncomfortable. They can achieve 100% carbon free, but how are they going to do it? I don't see that, and so that makes me uncomfortable voting for this resolution as well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. And so Xcel Energy is making a commitment to wind and solar primarily as renewable energy. They currently have a few nuclear facilities, but they aren't even committing past 2030 as to whether or not they're going to continue their nuclear operations over here at Prairie Island. And so renewable is renewable, carbon-free is carbon-free, and so I think it behooves us as local leaders to stand up and do what's right for large businesses who are making huge investments and doing what's right for our environment. I wish I would have brought with me all the notes that I took today just listening to Minnesota Public Radio for 20 minutes about the outcasts, what they're forecasting for here in 30 years. In 30 years, my children will be my age, and they'll be living with it, and they'll be fearful for their own kids if we don't all start taking a stand and being a heck of a lot more proactive than we currently are. And so I guess I don't understand why it is that we wouldn't want to commend a local very large employer who's willing to step up and put their, money into a huge investment in doing what's right for our environment.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Vaughn?
Well, I just want to follow up then. I mean, we all just came out of strategic visioning in the last 2 days. We had a 2-day workshop about this. This was not even on the top of our list, sustainability. It was on the list, but it wasn't a priority of our, as a council. My opinion, Councilmember Fultz, is if you want to condemn, write your own letter. Write it on behalf of you as a city council member of Hastings, but you don't get to bring all of us in there unless it goes to a discussion that we all get to talk about. I even thought about, well, what committee could we send this to? And I don't know where this item, this is the second time I've seen in 2 years where we try to lump everybody together to get this resolution or whatever together without having a good discussion about it. And personally, this did not come up on our strategic visioning as a priority, and I really kind of upset that it came here tonight because it is not what we are all agreeing on at this time. So personally, I don't want to see these in front of us again unless it goes through a process as a priority that we as a group talk about. If you want to write your own letter, write your own letter. But personally, I don't want my name attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Council? Well, I too would like to just say, I love supporting things, but that's their job. That's what they're supposed to be doing anyway, supporting us with that and in our future. If you want to write a letter, I agree. I could even write one, but I don't want it to be a resolution that I don't want to get on the bad side of all the other businesses that are doing many things to help this community. So I just think that, as a business owner, that's my job to give the work that I give. That's Xcel's job, and that's their responsibility to give what they're stating that you're stating, or doing what you're stating. I think that's just what they should be doing in general. Thank you. So I need to seek a motion.
I make a motion to pass this resolution supporting Xcel Energy and their commitment to having zero carbon electricity by 2050.
Do I have a second? Hearing none, we'll table it. Oh, it just doesn't pass. Thank you. Let's see. Council, do you have any announcements that you'd like to make? I have a few. Oh, Councilmember Bosanic.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would normally be attending the Dakota Communication Commission meeting, which is scheduled for this Thursday morning at 8 a.m., but I notified them that I can't be in 2 places at once because I'm going to be down at the state capitol for the League of Minnesota Cities Legislative Conference. I don't know if you had that on your announcements.
I did not.
We have council members who are going to this. For the sake of the public, this is an opportunity to do some meeting and greeting with other city council members from across the state. And then Thursday afternoon, we will be meeting one-on-one with our state legislator, Tony Juergens, and our state senator, Carla Bingham. And we will be passing along items that we think are a priority that affect the citizens of Hastings. And I'm sure that they will have some things that they want to pass along to us that show us that they are looking out for our best interests here as a city. Again, reminder to the public, we are not a political animal here. As a city council, we are apolitical. And I think it's very good that we are, because then there is no favoritism shown between one political party and another. we go to our state legislature with pure thoughts in terms of what is best for the citizens, not what might be best for a political party to meet an agenda or a goal that that party might have. And I think it's appropriate that we've got a Republican and a Democrat representing us here in Hastings from the state legislature on the Senate side and the House of Representatives side. So I think it's going to be an ecumenical approach to everything. One thing that we are looking for, I know, is to get the what's known as LGA, local government assistance, that program to continue. What that involves is money that is passed down from the state to the cities without strings attached. And we are told, spend it as you may. There are some cities that wind this into their general fund to reduce taxes. We as a city for a number of years have used that local government assistance money primarily for capital improvements, because sometimes that money isn't there, or there is money there, but it's not as much money as was there the year before. We have a governor who has committed to bringing local government assistance money back to the level of, I believe it's 2008, which is, of course, we all know, prior to the Great Recession. And if that happens, for example, this past year, our LGA funds from the state were over $700,000, and we used that for purchasing equipment, purchasing playground equipment, trucks, fire equipment, police equipment, things like that. And I don't want to say it's gravy, but it is an investment into making our city that much better. I don't want to predict what the LGA funding would be if the governor's recommendations go through, but hopefully it would be increased. That is one thing that we intend to talk to our legislators about as far as that goes. So that's a little bit about what the State Legislative Conference is all about. It is a worthwhile effort, and your council members will be attending that to serve the best interests of the city of Hastings. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. With the line of thought that we just had experienced, where we're not supposed to bring forward any initiatives that the council hasn't identified within its priorities the last 2 weeks, I think that, is maybe a little dicey when we go up to the legislative conference, that we discuss with our legislators legislative issues when we haven't identified any as a council that we're willing to full-heartedly support, and furthermore, I think that we should rethink our priorities if we can't talk about anything that wasn't identified within our priority systems, such as police and fire. We didn't talk about public safety issues. They weren't at the top of our list, and so I think that we really have to have a little bit more conversation then about what the council can and can't bring forward in the future. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Brox?
I have an update for as the chair of the administrative committee. We have received a number of proposals to hire a firm or consultant for our city administrator search. We will be reviewing those proposals as a committee and scheduling interviews with the candidates who have submitted proposals in the next week and a half. So we are moving forward with that process, and I just wanted to give that update.
Thank you. Councilmember Bosanic?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. In reference to Councilmember Fulch's comment about asking for things that we haven't decided upon, one of the things that we did talk about in our strategic planning sessions over approximately a 2-day period here last week was to to recognize what our budget parameters are. We had talked about a two-year, perhaps a two-year budget cycle, and had also talked about getting ourselves down to zero debt. And not to be misunderstood, but the business of the LGA, I think I had said here, is something that our legislators are going to be talking to us about. So it is something that I think is germane. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, Monday evening, the 25th, at 7 PM, there will be a planning commission meeting. The next Equity Innovation Lab at 6 PM on Tuesday, the 26th, and that will be at Hastings Golf Club. The 27th, there will be a ADA Transition Plan Open House, and that's the American Disability Act. That's 6 PM here at City Hall. We'd like to, I'd like to wish, along with, I'm sure, Councilmember Leifeld, a very happy birthday, which was, I believe, yesterday. And our next council meeting is on Monday, March 4th. Thank you. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Vaughn? A second? Second? Councilmember Brox? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.